So I just got back from Ramsey Solutions headquarters in Nashville, Tennessee. I was invited with a small group of friends to get to tour the facility, the public area, then kind of behind the scenes with all the employees. We were able to sit down in a conference room with two of their key employees, and they shared so much information. And in this video, I'm going to share my 5 biggest takeaways from Ramsey Solutions. Number 1, I remember this phrase. They kept saying, we help disrupt the toxic money conversation or something like that. And what was cool is that the reason that I remember that is because they said it over and over and over again. Every time I would talk to a different employee, somehow it would come up in the conversation. It is truly what they do, which was a big reminder. Do your employees, do your team members, do your clients, your customers, do they know what you stand for? Could they say it in a way where there's common themes? Could they say it so many times in so many different places that when your client leaves, he or she remembers it? That was so good. I will not forget that. Number 2, I could see the diversity in their products. You walk in and there was all of the books and wallets and board games and kids, just accessories, like so much stuff. So I could see the physical, right? We got to tour the Entree leadership floor where it's service-based. They're doing private coaching. We got to see, so they have physical, they have digital as well. And I could see the diversity in what was happening and the security and what they had because of so many different layers and levels. What was also kind of cool and kind of not cool was Dave was out of the office that day. It was a Friday and Dave was not there. And what's cool about this is I love to see when the CEO, when the person running the show doesn't have to be there and the show runs without him or her, right? So that was cool. The bad part was we didn't get to see him, right? He wasn't there. We did get to see his office, but we did not get to see him. He's out every Friday, they said, for succession planning, right? He is at an age where he's really trying to start to look at what is the exit strategy of this business? How does it live on without me? And I thought that was really interesting to see how he's, first of all, already starting to step out certain times, right? Put things in place, but that we should always, a reminder, we should always be looking ahead. Even if you're not at retirement age, how do we, even in our age right now, start to think, a few steps ahead, a few years ahead, a few decades ahead? But yes, the diversity in what they sell, and who does the selling, that Dave doesn't have to be there selling and they're still making money. Number 3, just a good reminder of your story is so powerful. And then not everybody knows your story, right? I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan. I've followed for, over a decade. And I will say that I got to go down this hallway. It was so amazing. This hallway filled of their story and the things that they were able to show on the wall, the visuals, not just somebody telling you something, but to show a picture of the car where he started selling the books in the back of his trunk, right? We got to see like the old first cover of the first book he ever wrote and that was not published, was self-published, and the cover wasn't great, things like that. So I think we have to remember, how do we dig deep and share that story, but how do we visually share it and not just tell somebody? It also makes me wish and remind myself to do this in the future. Save the embarrassing moments. Save the first draft. Save the thing from the logo that you created for the first year that is so horrendous, you want to just remove it from everywhere and you don't ever want to look at it again. Save it. Because when you see a decade later, 2 decades later, what you've built and you can go back and remember those things, that is part of your story. That is part of the memory. One of my parts of my story is I started teaching dance classes in my parents' backyard. And I didn't have a picture of that moment. And every time I would get interviewed by some sort of media, they would ask, do you have a photo? Can we, they want to share the visual. And I don't. And I reached out to a few of my dancers have been with me, that were with me 20 years ago. And I said, any chance you have anything to remember from like the first year or two? And they found this picture of me facing them. So the mom was taking it of her child, but they have this photo. You can see it's the backyard. They were in the grass, like the boom box is there. It definitely ages us. And there I am standing in front of these kids teaching them. And it's like, oh, like the backyard story comes to life. Number 4, I'm thinking too small. And maybe it was just like walking in and seeing the building, this massive building, 6 floors, 1,000 employees, just walking around it and just seeing all the things that they have built reminds me like, okay, I'm here in my home office. Like, this is foot traffic right now. You're seeing it, right? But that's going to be one piece, right? That'll be the wall of me showing my set, you know, in my office, and then where we go from here. So I think really just remembering, think bigger, and then whatever that picture is, go even bigger, right? Then what? Then what could it be? Like, keep going down that rabbit hole. There's just so much more out there for all of us. And last, the thing that I loved, and I can't share some of these pictures because they were behind the scenes with employees, but I'll hopefully give you a visual of these whiteboards everywhere, or nothing fancy, like poster board of motivating people, getting their wins, sharing. They had this really cool bell that every time somebody sells something in the building, the salesman that sells it, they run up to the bell, they ding it, and the entire floor is like cheering and congratulating them and acknowledging like, we're gonna change somebody's life. That was so cool to have that. And now, as somebody who is running a pretty remote business right now, I ask myself, how do I take that virtually, right? How do I apply this to what we're currently doing? When we walked around on their employees' desk, I saw some coins, and I asked the person giving us the tour, I'm like, what are these coins? What do they mean? And she said, oh, these are anniversaries. We congratulate them for their Ramsavversary. And it was like a 1-year coin and a 5-year and a 10-year. And then at 10 years, they gave this coin box. It was just really cool to see how they treat their employees and how proud the employees were to share, like the stickers on their mug or the coin that they have for their 5-year Ramsavversary, things like that. They also had this thing on the wall that said something about your millionaire coin. And I'm like, oh, I'm inquiring about everything. They're like, well, that's when you have $1 million to your net worth. We give out these coins. So I liked how they were really inspiring. They were motivating, and it was visually, you could see it. It was there. You could hear it with the bell, right? All of these things to get your employees motivated, possibly your clients motivated. What can you do? So those were some of my biggest takeaways that I got at Ramsey Solutions. So one thing I want you to catch with today's training is, no matter who you are, what you sell, what industry you are in, even if I don't look exactly like the model I just saw, right? If I'm like, oh, I don't sell physical products, I don't sell whatever this is. I always say, but how can I take this strategy and apply it to what I'm currently doing? So like I said, maybe I'm not in person with my entire team, but what can I take from what I saw and apply it virtually? So I wanna ask you, from this video, what can you take out of these 5 tips and apply it to your business? Share in the comments below.